Good day. In the second part of the lesson 9 step-by-steps, we're going to start off by talking about things we can do to ensure data integrity. We use a feature called data validation to do this in Excel, and it helps ensure that your data gets entered correctly. So you could leave it alone and just type in information like we've been doing all along, or we can kind of control what happens. So let's take shirt sizes, for example. With shirt sizes, we could type in just for one particular size, like size small, we could type in little s, capital S, SM, lowercase, big S, little m, big S, big M, with period, without periods, small, all lowercase, small with the S being capitalized. You get the idea. If you wanted to, with data integrity or data validation in Excel, we could set up rules. And there's different types of rules that we can do. We can make them very restrictive, or we can make them kind of restrictive or more informational. So there's a whole wide range of things that we can do when we are setting up our data validation rules. So I'm going to open up the file that we need, which is the O9 vet clinic patients, and we'll be using this document a lot. And what happens is we have a patients list and a client list. So we're at a vet office now, and we have all these animals, cats and dogs, and there's their names, they're the patients, type of animal they are, the breed that they are, the gender that they are, and the owner number. And then on the client list worksheet, we'll see all the information to do with the owner or the client of that particular patient. So we'll be using this a lot, and we're going to see this thing transform majorly by the time I get done with the video series. So I'm going to save this quick. And the first thing we're going to review is how to freeze rows. And they want us to freeze rows 1 through 4. So as I scroll down, okay, in my document, I want rows 1 through 4 to stay put. What do I have to select? You guessed it, row 5, the row below. So I'm going to select row 5. Now, what ribbon do I do or go to freeze my panes? We're going to go to View. So I go to View, Window, Freeze Panes. I can freeze the top row, the first column, or whatever I've selected. So top row would be row 1. We hardly ever use that. First column would be A. And we learned about this. So they're going to tell you on the test to freeze rows 1 through 4. You have to know to select row 5. They might also tell you to freeze rows A and B. You have to select row C. They might tell you to freeze rows 1 through 4 and columns A and B. Then you pick a cell, C5. So if they tell you to freeze columns A and B and 1 through 4, you pick one row below and one column to the right of what you want to freeze. And then, and I can quickly show you, you'll see the line here that represents the columns, and you can kind of see over here by G the freezing of the rows. That's how you do it for 2 at the same time. But we only want to freeze rows 1 through 4. So I'm going to drop down and I'm going to select row 5, go to freeze panes, and if I scroll down, 1 through 4 stays put. It makes it easier for me to see the column headings as I scroll down to all these patients. I'm going to go repeat the same thing on the client list worksheet. I'm going to select row 5, go to the View tab, the Window group, freeze pane, test it out. 1 through 4 is staying put. All right, so we're going to stay on the client list worksheet. And it says, in the client worksheet, select column L, which is for the area code. And this is where we are going to set our first data validation rule. So we need to go to the Data tab, and we need to go to the Data Tools group, and there's Data Validation. Going to drop it down. There's data validation, clear invalid data, and clear validation circles. I'll talk about these two in just a second. So we want data validation. So here's your dialog box, data validation. We have settings, input message, and error alert. What you will see as we're going through all of these is you don't have to do all of these. You can do some of these or a couple of these, but you do not have to do all of these. So settings is the rule, okay? So our column L represents area codes, and area codes tend to be, you guessed it, 3 characters, okay? So if I look at the allow and I go to any value, I'm going to pick one of 2 things, okay? I'm going to pick a whole number, okay, because three whole numbers, or I can do text length, okay? So a whole number tends to be something different, and I just want to point this out because it's a good guess. Between, not between, equal to, greater than, so on and so forth. So that's not what we want, okay? We definitely don't want a decimal. We don't need a list. We could have a list, like a drop-down list. So if we only had a couple area codes in our area, like we're 704 and 940 or 904, regardless, we could just put those 2. But if we ever had another client come in, like my area code is not the local area code, that could cause a little bit of problems unless we left an option for them to be able to type in, which would be under input message. We would then, instead of making it a stop, we would make it a warning. So like everything else in Excel, there's a bunch of different ways we can do this. It's not a date, it's not a time. We don't have to worry about custom yet. So it's text length, okay? So under text length, because it's, even though it's a number, we're not going to use it in a calculation. We are going to pick equal to, and this is the other reason why we are not using whole number opposed to text length, because these aren't numbers that would be used in a calculation. We learned about that way like back in lesson 6 formally. So here we could go select if we wanted to by using the collapse, or I can just type. So I'm just going to type 3 in because area codes are 3 characters. So this settings is where you set up your rule. All right, now we're going to click on input message. Now this is a little dialog box that comes up when somebody is getting ready to input something, in this case, into column L. You don't have to have a title and an input message. You can have one or the other. So our title, though, for this one is going to be rule, okay? And then our input message is, please enter a 3-digit area code, period. Okay. So now you'll see in a second, it's like a little post-it note, cream colored, that'll come up anytime we're in column L that'll say, hey, here's the rule when you're in this column. All right, so error alert. Okay, we have 3 options here. We have stop, which is pretty much going to force them to follow whatever rule that you have, which is, in this case, entering in 3 things. So if they type in 2, it'll yell at them. If they try to type in 5, it'll yell at them. Okay. Warning is more a, hey, this is what you should be doing, but you can get around it. And informational is more like an FYI, and it really isn't going to stop them from doing anything. All right, so while I'm in here, the other thing I need to point out to you is clear all. This is how you get rid of a rule once it's set. It is not clear circles, which is back under the drop down on the contextual tab data. But I'll keep talking about that so you don't forget about it. All right, so our error alert for this one is going to be stop. They have to put 3 in there. And then again, you could just do stop. You do not have to put a title and a message. You could put one or the other, but we're going to put a title in here again, and it's going to say data entry error. And the message is going to say only 3-digit, sorry, y'all, digit area codes are recognized. Now, I'm pressing F7. It is not working, so you have to be careful when you are typing in to make sure it is spelled correctly. All right, So now we press OK. I'm going to move this out of the way. And I can see when I'm in L, look, there is my input message. There's the rule. Please enter a 3-digit area code. Okay. So now if I come down here, they want us to go down to L57 and test this out. So we're going to type in 40 and I'm going to press tab. And notice a couple things here. When I typed in 40, here's my input message. That's the cream colored box. And then once I press tab or I press enter, here is my error alert dialog box. Remember, you typed this title in here, data entry error, and it says only 3-digit area codes are recognized. That's my message. Here's the stop sign. So my choices are, since I used that stop, retry, cancel, or get help. And, I mean, help isn't really going to help you because you made up the data validation rule. So we are going to, in this case, we're going to press cancel, and cancel gets rid of it. Okay. You could also press retry and try putting something in there. All right. So I'm going to press save. And now that is in there for anywhere I go in column L. As soon as I click an M, it goes away. All right. So the next thing we're going to look at is allowing only specific values to be entered. A typical piece of information you'll find in a database is often a single letter that represents a character. In data entry, it is easy for someone to slip and enter an invalid character. You can preempt that by setting up these rules. So we're going to do another one. So I'm going to come over here, back to our 09 vet clinic patients. I'm going to click on patient list, and I'm going to select column D. So what do you have to do first? Select the column where you want the rule to go. Then go to the Data tab, go to the Data Tools group, and drop down Data Validation. Now, if you need to get rid of a rule, which we will eventually do, you do not click Clear Invalid Data or Clear Validation Circles. Okay, you click on Data Validation and you click Clear All. All right, so we're setting up another rule for D. D, if I move this over, okay, because it's the floating dialog box, is their gender. Okay, so I'm shuffling because you'll see why in just a second. Okay, so we are going to go back to settings, and this time we're going to do a list. Okay, so essentially we're going to give them a drop down of choices to pick from for the animal sex. Okay, and we are going to come down here to source, and we could select our source if we wanted to, or we can type it in. So when you type it in, you type in, it could be words, but in this case, it's just abbreviations. We are going to type in a capital M, a comma, an F, a comma, and an N. Okay, so how do I make a new item in my list? I put a comma. So when I'm done with that list word, I put a comma. That is Excel's way to know, okay, this is the next item in the list. Okay, just like when you do a drop down in any kind of document online, when you're filling out a survey or something, and there's a drop down that says, like, what state do you live in? And you see this long list of states. That's essentially what we're doing. Our list will have 3 things in it: M, F, and N. M for male, F for female, and N stands for neutered. Okay. Not neutral, which that's why I was chuckling, because a lot of times when I'm in class teaching this, that's the answer I get. All right. So the next thing we see here is ignore blanks and in cell dropdown. Okay. So we are going to uncheck ignore blank. Okay. And then we want this as a drop down list. So we're going to leave that active. All right. So now we're going to go to input message. And with this input message, we are not going to do a title. We're just going to have a input message. And we're going to do male, comma, space female, comma, space neutered, as the little yellow cream colored message that pops up anytime. In this case, we're in column D. Now, The other thing you're going to notice that we're going to do with this one is we are not going to do an error alert. Okay. We're just going to press OK. So now anytime that if someone comes in to put in a new patient, they will see this drop-down list. Okay. So if I come down here to the next available row and I click in D57 and I press my drop down, before I do that, I see my input message. I see male, female, and neutered. And the idea here is that we don't really need the error alert because we're picking from something. So I can pick M. Okay. So if I press delete on my keyboard, it will go away. So if I'm here and I type in dog and I press tab twice and I try to type in M, I can also do the same thing, okay? But I'm gonna press delete again, I'm gonna press tab. I can type in an N, press tab. Okay, I'm gonna press delete, just trying to show you all the different options. But if I come over here and I try to press an H, it will give me the default validation rule because it's not part of the drop-down list. It doesn't match the rules that we put under the settings. So I'm going to hit cancel so it will go away. The one other thing I want to show you is if I type a little n in, that does not match. Okay, so that is character specific as well. So I'm going to press cancel. I'm going to get the dog over here. And that's another example that we have with our data validation rules. Okay, so we are now going to do another one on the patient list worksheet, and we're going to do it for column E. So I'm going to select column E, which is our owner number. I'm going to go to the data tab, the data tools, to data validation, and I'm going to click data validation. I'm going to start in my settings. Okay, so this time I'm going to do another list, but this one's going to be different. Okay, and I am going to come down to source, okay? And you can minimize this if you want to, or you don't have to. It just depends on how comfortable you are. I don't tend to minimize. The directions tell you to collapse it, but we don't have to. So we are going to, we're in the source box, come over to client list. I can move this if I want, okay? And they want us to select column A, okay? And you can see that it is active. Here's the marquee. And it says that I'm on the client list worksheet, okay? And I'm using all of column A. So no matter how much more I put in here, it will always be okay because it will be from A1 down to the very end of anything that possibly could be put in column A if I keep adding new clients in. All right. So now we are going to deselect, ignore blank values, okay? And we are going to deselect in-cell dropdown. So last time we left in-cell dropdown so we could pick M, F, or N. This time, I don't want it to be an in-cell dropdown. Essentially what you're doing with this version of the list is you are saying back in the other worksheet that whatever I type in there has to be something that's in column A on this client list worksheet. Let me say that again. What I am saying is that whatever I type in column E on the other worksheet in patient list has to be a number, one of these 4-digit character numbers in the client list worksheet, column A. All right. It says to click the error alert, and we're going to choose warning, okay? And then it says in the error message box, we're going to type owner must be the number of the pre-existing client. We don't need a title. You don't have to have one. All right. And the reason why we're doing warning is just in case we made a mistake, say in the client list number or we can kind of get around it. Because if we do it stop, it's going to make maybe a little bit more of a headache. So just in case an input error got put in wrong on the client list worksheet, like we, flipped two numbers around and it's wrong, it will allow us to still, put some information into patient list. It's just a warning. It's not a, hey, it has to be exact, like a stop is. All right, so now we click OK. Now, when I click on E, there's no little cream colored tag this time, no input message because I didn't put one in there. Okay, so we're going to make sure that our new validation rule is working. So we're going to come down here and we're going to put all our validation rules working. We're going to put a new animal in. Okay, so our new animal, his name is Murdoch. Murdoch is a dog, and Murdoch is a Rottweiler. And I press tab, and they tell me to type a capital B in here, which I've already showed you that's not going to work. So I'm going to hit retry. And instead of typing it this time, I am going to press the, I'm going to hit cancel. I'm going to press the down arrow, and I am going to pick M. And then I'm going to press tab. So now this column E is telling me that I have to have a number that's in the other worksheet and client list. So I'm going to type in 61 and I press tab, and it's saying our little message says owner must be a number for a pre-existing client, saying, hey, just so you know, do you want to continue? Yes or no. We are going to say no. We don't want to use that. Oops, we made a mistake. Let's try 31. Press tab. Oops, that is somebody. So if I come over here to client list, oh, there's 31. Joshua is the owner of Murdoch. Okay. And the zeros aren't important because they're just placeholders. So if you're thinking, why didn't you put 0031? That's why. All right, I'm going to press save. And that for now is the way to introduce you to this feature. We will keep using it over and over again because it is new. Just remember, if you want to get rid of one of these rules, like the one in E, I would select E. I would come over here to data validation. Data validation, I would hit clear. We will do that eventually. Okay. And the other important thing to remember with this is that you have to select the column first before you go to data validation. I'm going to press save. Okay, so the last thing in this video segment is something that I have mixed feelings on. Okay, it's removing duplicate rows from a worksheet. Many databases, it's important that each record, each new row is unique. You don't have duplicates. Okay, so they came up with a feature that will allow you to purge or get rid of any duplicates. Okay, so before we do that, okay, we are going to enter some data and get a little bit more practice with this data validation stuff that we did. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to type in a new client. I'm going to type in 0053, press tab, and the client is Mrs. and the autocomplete's coming up, so I'm going to utilize that. And it's Mary Jane Brink. And Mary Jane lives at 704 Fairway Drive, and that is in Cincinnati, Ohio, and that is 45250. And I'm going to go over and double check that because I can't read my tiny little printout here. So I'm going to look on here, 45250. All right, and then it is 513551655. Sorry, y'all, getting old. All right, so then here's our little data validation rule that's saying, hey, you have to put in 3 characters for this cell, which we are. We're going to type in 513, and we're going to type in 555 hyphen 1655. And then I'm going to press tab. All right, so now I'm also going to press save. Okay, so we tested out our data validations or reviewed them again. Okay, so now to do remove duplicates, you will select the far right corner of data all the way up, including the column headings. So we don't have anything in N, but that is still part of our data. So I'm going to go from N57 all the way up to A4. So I'm going to say that again. Okay. You want to select from the farthest bottom right-hand corner of information all the way up to your column headings. Don't exclude your column headings. It will make your life much easier. You'll see. Okay. So we're on the data tab again. We are under data tools. Remove duplicates. All right. So here's my problem. Okay. Now, if you forgot row 4, you wouldn't see all this and you wouldn't know what each column stood for. I mean, you could move this around and go back and forth, but that is a headache. Okay. So that's why we try to include them if we can. And my data has headers is checked. So I can deselect or select multiples of these. So the directions tell us to leave the my data has headers because row 4 does. And it says this way Excel won't treat row 4 as content also. So it's another reason why you want to leave that checked. All right. And then we are going to, in the columns list, remove the check besides client number. We're going to leave all the rest of these checked. Okay. And it says if duplicate names and addresses appear in the list, it is likely their client index numbers wouldn't be duplicated because if you are someone putting in this, you probably would have a chart system or a way to not duplicate your numbers and you would do the next available number. So that wouldn't be duplicated. What they're essentially saying is the rest of these probably would be put in there again the same. But here's my problem with this. Okay. You would have to have put all the information to every one of these columns exactly the same as the time before for it to find it by leaving all these checked. Okay. So it's great, but it's not error proof. You might run this and you might realize that you don't have any, you have duplicates, but it'll tell you you don't have duplicates because you typed something in differently. Or maybe you have 2 people that are typing in information and there's an extra space in there, or they do LEEE instead of LEE, and then it won't come up as a duplicate. So it's a nice program if the world was perfect in data entry. And I don't even know if I did 100% correct, but we'll find out here in just a second. So I am going to press OK. And it says I found 1. If it said they found none, that wouldn't have meant that I had typed that last thing in incorrectly, but I still would have had 2 names wrong. Okay. So it's not great. It's okay, but there's a lot of issues that can come from removing duplicates. It says 1 duplicate value found and removed in 52 unique values. So the other thing I have a problem with this is that it is going to remove that duplicate from your stuff right away. Press OK. It's gone. There's row 57. It's gone. Now, I could press undo and I could get it back though. Just saying. I'm going to press save. And I hope that helps you with a better understanding of data validation and remove duplicates. Until next time, thank you.